Hi, Graham. Thanks for joining us today. Absolutely lovely to see you. And canny insights.
Indeed,
We're
yes.
hoping to hear plenty of them today.
Hopefully.
Your business name and also hopefully what you're going to bring to UMicast. So before we get started in earnest, I mean, you've got a raft of names actually that you go by. I've seen things like the Retail Cupid,
Yes.
the North East Mary Portas. And the region's best known retail expert
Yeah.
in the northeast of England. What a range of names. And you've done all sorts of stuff. And I think, well, I know we're going to be really, really lucky to have you here today because you've got such a wealth of experience and knowledge. You've worked with governments, you've worked with small businesses, you've worked with large corporates. You've also done quite a bit of work in academia and research around the subject as well. So really looking forward to you drawing on all of those themes. But yeah, I'm going to have to work harder on getting myself a few alternative names. That's for sure to beat
Yeah.
some of those. So, in terms of setting a bit of the scene or the context for today's discussion, um, what's your view about the state of business on the high street generally? What are you seeing?
Well, anyone who already follows me on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever will already know that I'm someone who is very optimistic about high streets. So part of my role really is banging the drum for high streets, banging the drum for the businesses that are trading there. Because if all you do is look at the tabloids and the headlines, you would assume that a lot of places are in big trouble. And it's absolutely true that high streets are changing and there's less retail now than there was because there's more retail online and more retail out of town. So of course, our need for retail in town centres is changing. But actually, what is really exciting is how many interesting and creative businesses are still looking for space on the high street, and not just all those things that you can't do online anyway, like barbers and nail salons, but actual retailers where you go in and buy stuff. So I was in Chesley Street in County Durham a week or two ago, and they've had a new bridal shop, a new bakery, a new florist open in the last year. So part of what I try and do is yes, find solutions for the places that do have problems, but also add a bit of nuance, because I always think one of the things we can do if we're looking to improve places is to look at what's already working. And there are more examples out there of successful places and successful businesses on the high street than I think a lot of people might think.
Really interesting and love the positivity. What is so just building on that, why are the high streets so vital to us, as communities, as individuals, but also the broader economy? What is it about the high street that makes it so vital?
I suppose high streets are a thing that people use to root themselves in a town or a place, aren't they? Yeah. But so if you think back to your childhood or to going and visiting grandparents or whatever, a lot of those memories go back to being in the centre of the town, going to the cafes, exploring the toy shops, or whatever it is. And I think what we've learnt is that when people feel that their high streets aren't aren't performing as successfully as they would like them to, and aren't providing the things that they feel they want, that's when they start to get a bit listless about life in general and about their pride in place in general. And so I think if we have high streets and town centres that are doing well, it's an important ingredient in making people feel good about themselves more broadly. And if you go back a century or more, high streets and town centres were these kind of mixed use hubs. You have people living there, working there, all kinds of quirky businesses. If you look at the old directories that you can find in the libraries, you find all kinds of crazy things like oyster saloons and all these businesses that you think, what on earth was that? But the important point is that high streets back then weren't these kind of retail dominated things. They had retail, of course, but it was a whole mix of uses. And then after the war, um, uh, our towns began to get more and more dominated by retail, to the point where when that starts to change and we don't need as much retail anymore, you start to get these gaps. And that's why a lot of people are talking about bringing back some of that community feel, because high streets and town centres were always a focus of commerce, but also of socializing, of all kinds of activities, community. And I think it's absolutely right that bringing back some of those more diverse functions is part of the equation of making those high streets that are struggling more relevant again.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because, when you think about it, the informality, but the real importance of people connecting on the high street in an unplanned, unprompted way, and that really starts to deal with things like isolation and some of those really, really deep rooted societal or community issues. And it's very easy to overlook the importance of the high street and facilitating some of those solutions and interactions and connections amongst people, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think COVID demonstrated quite how important that was, because people were suddenly uh, not able to do these
Yeah,
things. And so going out to the supermarket or to the corner shop might be your only interaction of the day back then. And
absolutely.
and for some people it still can be. I know uh, I know my mum always loves going to the local co-op, because it gives her a chance to meet people and talk to people and have a chat. And you can't underestimate how important that is. And again, I was talking to a business a week or two ago, and they were saying that that part of the thing that they love about running their shop is that they get to meet so many people, and people just come in and kind of offload, and maybe that isn't great for the business, but it's nice to feel like as a business you are such an important part of that community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's yeah, such an important feature. So if we come on to some of the economic aspects of the high street, so the recently published small business plan has really placed a strong importance in policy terms on as I say, the importance of thriving high streets. So, what are your views about that, and how are you seeing that translate now into actual on the ground action and activity and positivity?
Yes, I think first of all, it's good that the government has published this report, to this paper, and it does mention high streets a lot of times. I think I counted about 40
Yeah,
references to
yeah.
high streets in there, which is good. I think if you talk to uh, any business on the high street, they will probably be a little bit skeptical right now about how far the current government is on their side, because if you talked to retailers and hospitality businesses, they will point to all the things they've been clobbered with over the last few months, having to pay more in minimum wage, having to pay more in national insurance, and those are things that do act uh, as a barrier on growth, and a barrier on employing people. And business rates, of course, is something that every person like me always mentions.
Yeah,
But certainly
it's important.
it's important, and it is a barrier. And I think lots of governments have talked about tweaking it, but ultimately, I think a lot of retail businesses would like there to be some. Uh, some alternative to business rates, so that you're not being hit by these huge costs even before you've sold a thing. So I think that that's all the negative stuff out the way, I suppose. I think it's positive that the government seems to recognise what some of the issues are. One of the really big challenges on the high street at the moment, that I think any business, large or small, will talk about, is crime.
Yeah.
And that is covered in this report. And I think uh, uh, it's right that it is, because actually, this scourge of shoplifting right now is one of the absolute biggest barriers and pressures that I think any business in bricks and mortar is facing. And again, I was talking to a business owner a few weeks ago who is closing her shop next year, partly because being in there on her own, she doesn't feel safe anymore, and that's a horrible thing.
Yeah, that is.
It's not right that
Mm.
that any business owner on the high street should feel that way.
Mhm.
And so I think absolutely there is a need to deal with this issue of policing and criminality, and tackling the causes of what is kind of feeding into that. And so it's that thing where actually a lot of the issues on the high street aren't always to do with high street and retail and trading.
Yeah.
It's to do with all these wider issues in society, and it's encouraging that government seems to know that. I think the jury is out on whether they have the means to actually tackle it.
Yeah. It is a really complex problem because of those societal drivers in it as well, and the community challenges and issues. And indeed, some of the a lot of the retail businesses that we talk to have definitely moved on from describing some of those challenges around national insurance increases, the introduction of new regimes with reference to food waste and so on and so forth has been the big challenges, to most definitely the issue of shoplifting and high street based crime. What have you seen then? Any examples of where that's been tackled well and positively? Have you got any examples of that?
Yes, I think quite a lot of places are implementing schemes on the lines of a shop watch kind of scheme, where they have. So I think Durham City has this, and they have a load of radios where if there's somebody out and about who is a known troublemaker, a known shoplifter, those who are running these shops can kind of contact the police or contact each other, and there's like the whole network
Okay.
of communication that can help to can stop problems before they kind of take off. And similarly, I think other places have got WhatsApp groups and all kinds of things like that. So I guess one of the themes that comes out a lot in terms of high streets and success is about people working together. And I think just as people on the high street who are running businesses can work together to promote their place and to run events and do all that kind of thing, they can also work together to address these issues around shoplifting or whatever else.
Interesting. And I hear a sort of quite a lot of discussion and debate about the role of larger, multiples and corporates in retail and hospitality, and their role on the high street. What's your view about whether there's an importance in having a blend of private and independent and corporate and so on? Is there a benefit to having both, or?
I think it depends on the place. So if you look at how high streets were maybe 30, 40 years ago, a lot of big centres were dominated by the multiples. And what we are seeing in lots of places is that as rents have become more affordable in some cases, and kind of as big names have left the centre of towns, more independents are popping up in the heart of town centres, which is good, because I think in many cases a blend of multiples and independence is good and the way to go. Some towns indeed have hardly any multiples, and there are still examples of thriving towns where virtually every business is a local independent.
Yeah.
And so again, it's really important that I and others tell those stories and celebrate those examples, because I think there is this whole issue that if we keep telling people how awful the high street is, it stops them going. It's like
Well, we can talk ourselves into a problem, can't we? We're quite good at that sometimes.
it's like any kind of advertising, in effect. If you
Yeah.
it's no good kind of over promising, but equally, I think if you go to your local high street, wherever that is in the country, 9 times out of 10, you might well be pleasantly surprised at the breadth and quality of businesses you can find there. And that is part of the thing that I spend my time banging on about, because I do feel that uh, as independents become more prominent, as we see some fantastic independents looking to invest in their communities and to offer something good to people who live there, I think it's absolutely important to support and champion those, because if we don't, they won't survive.
Yeah. It's really struck me, and it's actually kind of playing in my mind now, that until you mentioned the historically the high street being a blend of activities rather than just retail as it did once become in recent years. When I think of those places where I like to go, because they have a nice feel from a point of view of high street, they are blended. You'll have, professional services on there, you'll have hospitality, you'll have people selling products, you'll have physiotherapists and all sorts of different things. And yeah, it's really interesting that sometimes you do think high street retail rather than perhaps thinking a little more expansively about what that might look like and how that might be approached. So if we really take it into a kind of practical place now. So if I was starting out in starting my business, and I was going to place my business on the high street, what are the things that you would be saying to me to watch out for, to do, because you see this often not happening? And, those common pitfalls that you spot, but us that, have never done this before just fall into and trip over.
Yes, it's a really important question, actually, and it's frustrating when I do see businesses that have opened in the wrong place, and it's like, oh, if only you'd had some advice beforehand.
Yeah.
So I think the first and most important thing is to have a good business plan and a robust idea for what you want to do. And if you've got that, there is every chance it will work somewhere. But you have to be careful, because, for example, in an area like the North East, you might think, oh, I want to go and trade in Newcastle, but Newcastle is a big city. There aren't all that many affordable options for an independent. You might think, well, actually, I'll go in the Granger Market, which is a good place for smaller businesses. Equally, if you're in County Durham, you might think, oh, I want to be in Durham City, but again, it can be really expensive to trade there. But the footfall's good. So it might be that you're weighing up, well, actually, I could trade in Chesley Street or Crook, and the rents and rates there are a lot cheaper, but I don't have the advantage of the footfall. So it's weighing up all these kind of issues, and also thinking about your customers. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if you open in one place or another, that your customers won't come and find you, because in a sense, that idea of relying on passing trade is kind of moot now anyway. You have to kind of bring people into your store through your marketing and through your efforts. So all those kinds of factors are important. Also, I think, look at who else is there. Being part of a really welcoming business community is important. So it might be that you have a local traders association or business improvement district, or businesses whose functions complement yours, and all those kind of things can be worth thinking about too. And it's probably a good chance to also plug my Retail Cupid thing, because as that is basically where I matchmake between businesses and premises. So in a place like Durham, where I'm commissioned to do this, what I do is that if someone wants to trade in Durham, or they're thinking about trading in Durham, they can come and talk to me. My work is funded by the parish council, so there's no cost to the business, and I can talk to them, learn about what their business is, and then and then recommend where in the city might be a good location for them, and match them up with the agents or the landlords and make those introductions. And that is both a really good way uh, of uh, filling vacant units.
Yeah.
I think I'm up to about 6 so far that I've helped.
Fantastic.
I've had a kind of hand in, but also it's a really good way to support businesses in those early stages and hopefully stop them making the wrong choices.
That sounds like a really brilliant opportunity for people in service. So how would they access that Retail Cupid service?
Well, it's something that is basically commissioned on a place by place basis. So I do it in Durham, but obviously if other towns and cities wanted to do it as well, I'm always open to those suggestions. But even if there isn't that in a given town or city, there is probably something else that is similar. Maybe the council is running it,
Right.
or maybe the business improvement district is doing something. So there's nearly always a person you can talk to in a town or city who can provide some kind of help and encouragement, even if it isn't quite in the Retail Cupid form.
Tell us a little bit. You've mentioned it a couple of times there. Tell us what are business improvement districts, and why, as a business thinking about placing myself in the high street, I should be interested in them.
Yes. So a business improvement district, or a BID, is basically an organisation that is separate from a council and all those kind of things, and it's funded by the ratepayers in a defined area. So
Okay.
in the North East, for example, you have bids in Newcastle and Sunderland and Durham as well. And what it is that all the businesses that are paying business rates um, pay an extra levy of about 1% usually on the rates that is compulsory, and that extra levy goes into a pot that basically pays for the bid, and the bid will normally provide extra things that the council isn't able to. So it might provide extra cleaning services, gum busters, that kind of thing. It might provide extra planters or hanging baskets, marketing activity, a program of events, all that kind of thing. So if you're in a place that has a bid, you know that can be a plus point, because it's an extra level of marketing and promotion and support at the place level.
Right.
Um, and certainly, I think if you are in an area where there is a bid, it makes absolute sense to make sure that you're involved in that as much as you can. Durham, for example, has a regular independence campaign that any business can sign up to, and that provides like a kind of a competition and marketing and all kinds of things. So I think if you are part of a bid, it's a really good opportunity to shine a light on your business, but also to make connections, because ultimately a bid is run by the businesses. So its board is made up of business members from the area, and you can get involved and play your part. And those kind of organizations, whether it's a bid or some kind of other town board or whatever it is, um, I'm a fellow of the Institute of Place Management, and IPM is always going on about the importance of place leadership and working together. Because actually, if you look at those towns and cities that are doing well, it's nearly always the ones where you have individual businesses supporting each other and working together for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah. With that energy and commitment to all. Yeah.
Yes.
And you've mentioned a couple of times whilst we've been chatting the marketing and not being reliant on footfall entirely in today's world. So when you are considering place, it's not always where the high footfall is. So from a marketing perspective, do you think that businesses should have a blend of online and offline? Is it a different kind of marketing? What do you think success looks like in that regard?
Yes, I think I've quite often talked about how a lot of the new independents who are coming through tend to be really marketing savvy right from the beginning. So uh, I mentioned those businesses I was talking to in Chesterley Street, and the bakery, for example, is really good at its marketing. It was teasing updates about the new shop even before it was finished, and so at the point where it opened its doors, people were already invested and really keen to see what it looked like when it was finished. And so it's absolutely the case that you don't have to sell online necessarily, but you can certainly use online as a really important footfall driver. And the number of times that I will go into a shop and people will say, "Oh, I had someone come in today who'd seen me on Instagram, who'd seen me on Facebook," and it really works. And so it's a question of finding which. Uh, it's a question of finding what channels work for you as well, because there's a danger that you think, "Oh, I have to be on everything," and actually, often just doing one or two really well is all it takes. Probably, I would say most businesses these days tend to be on Instagram, as of course you can do your reels and your stories and things as well, and Facebook is still pretty good for lots of businesses too. Although if you're trying to reach anybody under 25, I think Facebook is a bit old hat now.
Yeah, that's why I'm still on it, I think. So in terms of marketing and doing the online stuff, I mean, quite a lot of the businesses that we talk to, I'll just say, "Well, I don't know where to start. I'm not, I can watch stuff on Instagram, but I'm not great at posting my own stuff, etc." But there are quite a lot of support tools and programs across the country to help small businesses adopt digital technologies. And that's everything from, it might be from a high street perspective in terms of processing payments, managing stock, but also right through to digital marketing, aren't there? And I think there's a few in Durham. There's a program in Durham that's currently underway. So if you're struggling with that, businesses can go and access it, can't they?
Yeah, it's worth looking online to see what your own council is doing. So, for example, in Durham, I think it's durham.gov.uk/retail is like the kind of portal to all the different kinds of support and grants that are available. And most councils have got some kind of page on their website that will list similar opportunities. And certainly I've been involved in delivering some of that in different parts of the country, whether that is in the form of one-to-one support or business planning or webinars. So there's loads of things out there. And like you say, it is really satisfying when you if you have that conversation with someone and they don't quite know where to start with social media or with a website or even with Google their business sometimes. And it's really nice when after the conversation, after the session, they will go away and they will feel more confident, more empowered. And you can see within a week or two, it's already making a positive difference on their business.
Okay, so let's move towards businesses who are already established now. And you might have been on the high street and running your business on the high street for quite a good few years. And as lots of businesses do, not just even those on the high street, you get off to an absolute flying start. Things are going really, really well, and then things start to tail off. Might be a competitor's, parked up a couple of doors down, or it might be that your product isn't appealing, or whatever the reason. What are you seeing in that regard? What are the common trends, and how would you suggest businesses go about avoiding those downturns?
It's a really good question, isn't it? And I think it's illustrated in a way by the fact that even now I talk to businesses and they'll say, "Oh, someone came in today and they said, are you new?" And it's like, "No, I've been here 15, 20 years, and you really have to work hard to be seen. It doesn't matter whether you've been there a month or a year or 10 years, you have to keep working to be seen." And I suppose, I suppose it sounds obvious, but one of the things that you have to do, of course, is to stay relevant. And we know that high streets are changing and consumer needs are changing. And so I think keeping your business fresh is really important, and talking to your customers and understanding what they want. what you can provide that will help them come and support you more often. Equally, I think sometimes a shop might start out looking rather nice, and then over the years it fades. And so I talk a lot about retail curb appeal, and that is something that's really important because, again, some of the new businesses that I'm seeing have really nailed their kind of quality of shop front and the signage and the flowers and the board outside, and it looks really appealing, and it becomes something that is kind of instantly kind of Instagrammable, and that can make a really big impact because honestly, there are a lot of shops, a lot of businesses that you don't really look twice at. And so if you do make an effort to create a beautiful shop front, it really does have an impact.
I love that. Be seen and be grammable. They're definitely
Yeah.
two takeaways I'm gonna take away from today. One of the, I guess one of the challenges to continuing to be current, investing in things that make you seen for the right reasons, often takes money. Often takes quite a bit of cash, and we see from the Get Funding service that we operate that in today's world, whilst we all want it to be easier and simpler for businesses to access finance and funding, it's still quite challenging to find. I think, firstly, sometimes to understand what kind of finance and funding is relevant to me as a business. Then to be able to be equipped with the tools and the information with which to persuade somebody to give me some funding for my business, and then to actually land it. So, what are the typical kind of finance tools or products that you see used in high street businesses? Is it things like asset finance, overdrafts, etc.? Where would you be going if you needed to finance your high street business?
Honestly, it's probably not something I tend to get too involved in my own work. But I think what I actually see a lot of is businesses just being really canny about how they start up. And so often I will see a business that opens a shop and they're still holding down another job at the same time.
It's classic bootstrapping kind of.
Yeah, and so I think there's an awful lot of that goes on, and actually, certainly in the North East, maybe a culture of businesses not spending what they haven't got and really grafting and buckling down and spending really carefully.
Yeah.
I suppose in terms of all the other things you mentioned, I would probably just, because it's not my expertise really. So I would normally signpost them to people like you who are more expert in that kind of thing.
Yeah, because there are actually now, and so many businesses bootstrap when they're starting out, particularly. But I guess for there are alternatives now, which when I speak to people who are just starting, and the natural assumption is, well, I've saved up my money, so I can afford to pay myself in the early stages if it's not going too well, rather than looking at some of the solutions now that are out there, like the startup loan scheme, for example, which is backed by government and gives a preferential rate. So keep your savings in your back pocket and perhaps use a financing tool like that. And for more established businesses, they're really one of the positive things about the funding and finance world now is there are so many solutions out there, but that does make it very, very difficult for businesses to understand which one to go with or which one to think about. Hence why we established the Get Funding service to help them through that. So if we now sort of try and look to the future, embrace that positivity that you brought at the start of our conversation, if you look forward into the future, Graham, where do you see the high street in years to come? And speculate as much as you like.
Well, I think it will. It's always an evolution. So I always talk about high streets as evolving, not dying, because there's too much nonsense about the death of the high street or about saving high streets, but you can't save something that isn't broken. And my view is that the high street doesn't need saving because actually it's just evolving in the way that it's always evolved, even if that pace of change is faster than it has been in the past. So if you look to the future, I think there will still be a cohort of national and global retailers that want to be in the best locations. And we're seeing that in many of the bigger towns and cities. Equally, in smaller market towns, there is still plenty of demand from independent businesses. And yes, all your kind of barbers and nail salons and beauty and all those things that you inherently can't do on Amazon. But equally, still, people who are wanting to open shops as well, actually sell stuff. And then in between, you've got this thing of looking at some of the space that is maybe surplus and repurposing that for other productive uses. And so it's partly about bringing in housing into upper floors or behind shop frontages. But equally, we're seeing more kind of hotels and gyms and education and healthcare uses and all kinds of things. And that makes absolute sense when you think of a high street or a town centre as being that hub of the community. So I think what we'll see is that trend continuing of places becoming more mixed use, more diverse, which is good. But at the same time, don't believe those people who tell you that retail isn't going to be a big part of the equation, because I think it still is. And kind of online retail, of course, it's getting bigger and bigger, but it's still only accounts for about a quarter of all retail spend. And even in terms of the COVID impact, online retail's market share has kind of gone back to where it would have been if COVID hadn't happened. So ultimately, people still value being able to go out, talk to real people, touch real products, and have those kinds of more hands-on experiences. And the businesses that will do well in the future are those that understand that and that offer something that you can't get online, and that work with the other businesses in the place to attract people, not just to their own business, but to the whole town. Because again, a business on its own in a place can be a real success, but it will be more successful if you can tap into the whole wider ecosystem and offer something that draws people in for half a day, a full day, with a whole plethora of different experiences around eating and drinking and shopping and socializing, whatever else it is.
So, Graham, in terms of wrapping up then, if somebody wants to find you, if somebody has been really energized by what you've had to say today and think, I need to speak to Graham about some of those things that he touched on, how do businesses reach you?
Well, I'm quite Googleable. I've got a good name for that. It's good having a distinctive name. So if you Google me, Soult, I'm easy to find all over the web. But if you want to kind of go straight to my own website, it's at cannyinsights.com.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. It's been an absolute joy to listen to what you have to say today, because you have actually reminded me of the importance of High Street and the vibrancy that High Street can bring to communities, to us as citizens, but really importantly as well to economies, and the importance of the diversity in the High Street. Thanks so much for being an incredible ambassador for it. And hopefully when we next meet, you'll have another couple of names to add to your list alongside the Mary Portas of the North East. So thanks once again, Graham.